Define, list, and memorize more angles. Here's a lesson plan we're putting together for geometry, Math 3051, Georgia State, Spring Semester 2021. We're going to use the Bloom here again, taxonomy. We begin at the bottom of the pyramid with remember and understand. We're going to recall facts and explain ideas and concepts. Here's our Common Core standard. We're going to find the area of the right triangle and other triangles, quadrilaterals, polygons, by composing them into rectangles or decomposing into triangles and other shapes. We're going to apply these techniques and the concepts of solving real world and mathematical problems. Here's our reference. And here's our Common Core standard. Here are our essential questions. Students will keep considering what are the defining relationships between different types of angles. Students will keep considering what rules can be used to determine the measure of an unknown angle. Students will keep considering what are the mathematical attributes of angles and how are they measured or calculated. Students will keep considering how are spatial relationships, including shapes and dimensions, used to draw, construct, model, and represent real situations or solve problems. Understanding. Students will understand that geometry can effectively describe naturally occurring patterns. Students will understand that identifying the properties of simpler components of geometric figures can help understand the composition, design, and properties of more complex angles. Students will understand that the measure of one angle can be used to find the measure of another angle. Students will understand that there is more than one way to represent and understand relationships between angles. Students will understand that two angles can be added to find an unknown angle. Students will understand that two angles can be subtracted to find an unknown angle. Knowledge. Students will know that they can combine two angles to create a third angle. Students will know that they can separate combined angles to create a different angle. Students will know that angles are made up of two rays that share an endpoint. Students will know that two angles can also share a common ray. Students will know that complementary angles are two angles with the sum of their measure being 90 degrees. Students will know that supplementary angles are two angles with the sum of their measure being 180 degrees. Students will know that vertical angles are the pairs of non-adjacent angles created by two intersecting lines. Skill. Students will be skilled at identifying complementary, supplementary, and vertical angles. Students will be skilled at building geometric figures by knowing how to connect points, which then connect to line segments or rays to create angles. Students will be skilled at adding or subtracting angles to find an unknown angle. Students will be skilled at using the form feature in Google Docs to create study material. Students will be skilled at associating material with prior knowledge to solve new problems. Transfer. Students will be able to independently use their learning to use Google Docs or any software that can create images on documents to help recognize, recall names, and properties of complementary, supplementary, and vertical angles. Now this lesson is to have students create a self-assessment to gauge their level of knowledge. You can click the link right here below. Barriers to learning. Students may not have access to computers, Microsoft Office Suite, Google Docs, or other software. Students may not understand some abstract concepts. To engage. Have the students discuss the ways they retain information. metacognition. You can show the students examples. We are going to investigate this through an engineering design challenge. Engineering design challenge. Design a document, image, or slide presentation that can be used to remember names and properties of complementary, supplementary, and vertical angles. Constraints. Some may not understand abstract explanations, may not have computer access, or may not be computer literate. Explore. Provide each student with Microsoft Office Suite, Google Docs, or any software that can create images within documents. Discuss the design that the students may want to use for their project. Tell students they will have another opportunity to redesign. Allow the students to discuss what type of meaning they may want to convey through their work. Lead them in their creative process by selecting features they can use to create an image within a document when using Microsoft Office Suite, Google Docs, or other software. In line with an engineering design process, have them brainstorm and redesign. Here we have Google Docs. And what we want to do here is find two angles that are blank when the sum of their measure is 90 degrees. You can have the students search for images on their computer, or you could go on a Google search. Here we find complementary angles, and we find an image which will go perfectly with their study material. As we scroll down, we're looking for two angles that are blank when the sum of their measure is 180 degrees. We see the answer here is supplementary angles. So we have the students go in and find an image for supplementary angles. Go to the Google search, type in supplementary angles, and we have an image, two images actually. We're going to choose this one. That fits perfectly into our narrative. Here we're looking for two angles that have a common vertex and a common side. Now we have several of the definitions we know. We have one new word, so we're going to have the students search for the new word. So adjacent angles, here are the images that come up, and I guess you could pick any one of these. We're going to choose this one. Now we're looking for when the common side of adjacent angles separate an angle into two angles of equal measure, then the common side is called a what? All right. We have four definitions here, and we'll have the students plug in these images and see what comes up. As we do our Google search, we're going to try angle bisector, and the two in the front look good. We're going to select this image here because we'll be doing a practice later with a compass, and this is what that practice will look like. Moving on. When the common side of adjacent angles are separated by an angle into the angles of equal measure, then the common side is called, and since we already have an image here, we could just have the kids identify which ray is the common side for both rays. Here we're trying to reinforce what we're doing with complementary angles. Two angles are complementary angles. One, the sum of their measure is, and we have an image here that we're looking for. We go into the Google search again for complementary angles. And here I didn't find the one that I really liked here on Google search, so I pulled one from my computer that I will provide students with an example of a complementary angle that'll fit this definition. And here it is. Moving on to the next one. Two angles are supplementary angles when the sum of their measure is, and again, I'm going to go to my computer and pull up an image I want the students to have. And here's an image of a supplementary angle that fits this definition. As we continue to scroll down, when two lines intersect, pairs of non-adjacent angles are called, and we have a new definition down here. So that's what we'll have the students search for. We'll go to the Google search and put in vertical angles. We have several examples of vertical angles. And I'm going to choose this one. Scroll up a little bit more, as it can show the adjacent angles by color. And that's pretty much it for the students. We have one more here. The image below is what kind of angle. Now we show the kids how to add angles to get an understanding of supplementary, complementary, or vertical angles. To add the sum of an angle, and we use algebra so they can see how they can solve for the unknown angle. What is the sum of the angle? Now they solve the algebraic problem above and they get the answer. Find the correct sum of the measure equation to solve the problem. Here we again use algebra to solve for the unknown angle. Next one, we have the children solve for it. What is the sum of the supplementary angle? Now we have one more image we want them to find. When two lines intersect, pairs of non-adjacent angles are called. And we have the students search those definitions on Google. And we try to find images of vertical angles. And again, I go to my computer to give the students the angles or the image that I want them to have. An image of vertical angles. And that's pretty much it for the creative side of it. To extend the lesson, allow the students to redesign their project if they are not satisfied with their first attempts. To explain or to draw further connections, have the students find angles they learned in this lesson in the real world and explain their understanding of each angle's functionality. Evaluate. Post-lesson summative evaluation will be the completed coursework from this lesson. Here's all my reference material for this lesson. Thanks again. Please subscribe, or you can click one of the links below to find more material. Take care and thanks.